For me, any philanthropic passion I have in any capacities definitely stem from my mom. And she's got a really strong humanitarian spirit. She's always been an activist, but she's also always instilled in us the importance to know your culture, know where you're from, and to be able to give back to it. And we're from Somalia, so it's on the east part of Africa, the Horn of Africa actually. And she was always like, look, I want you to speak the language, one, understand the culture, but look at ways as you grow up, as a privileged person growing up in Canada, to be able to give back. And that always, sat with me because I understood that privilege early on because I'd been able to go back. And obviously Somalia has been in this war for a very long time, just coming out of that and seeing what that looks like for people. But particularly agriculture and food security, I may not have necessarily come across if it wasn't for her. It's not necessarily the most sexiest topic, and it's not something that I thought that I would be engaged in. But her background, coming from a rural community and looking at the importance of understanding the land and being able to provide food for yourself and your family, to have that security, she really instilled that in us. So we spoke to IFAD, we got to go on this field visit, and I think to your point, it's really hard as a global community for problems to come across as important if they don't affect everyone. And now that we're seeing inflation and what the war is doing and all the effects that's happening around food security in places like Canada and the States and the global north, people understand the issue more, and they understand how, the aid model isn't necessarily the strongest, and I have nothing against it because there's a time and a place, but it isn't the strongest factor when you're looking at investing in the people who need that aid, because those people happen to be the same people who are in the rural communities who provide 80% of the world's calories, for instance, and who understand biodiversity and who understand how to grow food to feed their families, take care of themselves, and take care of the world. So incorporating sort of all those bits was something that I definitely learned on this journey that I've taken, whatever you want to call it, in the past 4 years, but it wouldn't have started without my mom. So I'm super thankful for her for that. I think what you said is really interesting. If you feed someone, then they can, work for themselves and you can empower that person. Now just imagine if you taught them how to grow their own food. That goes beyond just feeding them. And it's one of the mandates about IFAD that I love, because it's not just the fish, it's the fishing rod. You're going to teach someone how to fish and support themselves. And on arts, there's almost no better way to spark a conversation or to engage in something that may for some people otherwise be, controversial, difficult to speak about, than in the form of the arts. And I absolutely love it for that and give it all its due credit, because I think it is the ultimate conversation starter. You see a piece on a wall, you hear about something in a museum, you're getting something started in terms of a conversation. So I think artists need to understand that they have that power, because so much of everything else is so politically correct, or it's, now in the sphere of, whoa, we can't talk about that because cancel culture and such. But I think art form is a great way for anyone to be able to touch on issues that affect people in real time, and to be able to talk about these things in such a beautiful way that it's almost approachable, if that makes sense. Because people are happy to look at a painting and start a conversation, may not be as happy to look at a thread on Twitter. So, I think that there's always going to be a place for art. It's so important, and I hope that artists understand and keep that going, because it's really up to them to be the conversation starters and the movers. Look, I've always been a family person, for one. I actually, for a long time when I left home, I had trouble being anywhere alone because I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters who would never leave me alone. So moving was a learning curve for me anyways. But actually, the idea of coupledom and the togetherness notion that you're seeing in the brand came about at a time where we were all isolated from people we love, the pandemic, right? So I think for myself and my husband, realizing that so much of our relationships in our life affects our mental wellness. Like, I was actually, quite distraught that I couldn't see my mom couldn't go back home, or I wouldn't have been able to take Idris with me, you know, couldn't see family, friends, was reaching out to people, hearing about things happening, and you couldn't be there, a funeral, a wedding, whatever it was, right? And community and relationship are so important and integral to our lives. It's one of the first things you learn in school, the buddy system, you know, safety in numbers. But it's not spoken about, I don't think, and it doesn't get its due credit if it's not just a romantic thing or just a... So we wanted to kind of, and we use the word couple, and people ask us all the time, well, is it not just romantic? And we say, no, it's familial, it's best friends, it's business, it's just about getting through life together. And what does that mean? And I think it definitely comes partly from my passion for people, and I love that you called it a love for people, but selfishly it's because I love all the people around me, and I hope that other people have that as well, because I would not have gotten anywhere near this sphere of anything that I do if it wasn't for the people in my life. And I think recognizing that and be able to use that to our advantage almost, we're stronger in bigger numbers. Humanity is stronger when we all work together. So taking a little piece of that and trying to get that in our brand it was really important to us. And the fact that it translated to you, first of all, I'm so thankful for you even saying that. So thank you for noticing it.